Alvin and the Chipmunks is an American animated music group created by Ross Bagdasarian, for a novelty record in 1958. The group consists of 3 singing animated anthropomorphic chipmunks, Alvin, the mischievous troublemaker, who quickly became the star of the group; Simon, the tall, bespectacled intellectual; and Theodore, the chubby, impressionable one. The trio is managed by their human adoptive father, David Seville. In reality, David Seville was Bagdasarian's stage name, and the Chipmunks themselves are named after the executives of their original record label. The characters became a success, and the singing chipmunks and their manager were given life in several animated cartoon productions, using redrawn, anthropomorphic chipmunks, and eventually films. The voices of the group were all performed by Bagdasarian, who sped up the playback to create high-pitched voices. This oft-used process was not entirely new to Bagdasarian, who had also used it for 2 previous novelty songs, including Witch Doctor, but it was so unusual and well executed it earned the record 2 Grammy Awards for engineering. Bagdasarian, performing as the Chipmunks, released a long line of albums and singles, with the Chipmunk Song becoming a #1 single in the United States. After the death of Bagdasarian in 1972, the characters' voices were performed by his son Ross Bagdasarian, Jr. and the latter's wife Janice Karman in the subsequent incarnations of the 1980s and 1990s. In the 2007 CGI live-action movie adaptation and its 2009 sequel, they were voiced in dialogue by Justin Long, Matthew Gray Gubler and Jesse McCartney. Bagdasarian, Jr. and Karman continue to perform the singing voices for Alvin, Theodore and the Chipettes, but Steve Vining does Simon's singing voice. The project has earned 5 Grammy Awards, an American Music Award, a Golden Reel Award, and 3 Kids' Choice Awards, and has been nominated for 3 Emmy Awards. A third movie installment, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked, was released in theaters on December 16, 2011. Fox 2000 Pictures and Regency Enterprises announced a 4th installment, titled Alvin and the Chipmunks 4, scheduled to be released on December 11, 2015. A CGI animated TV series revival, titled Alvin and the Chipmunks, is currently in production. Scheduled to run for 52 11-minute episodes, it will premiere on Nickelodeon in early 2015. After a 25-year hiatus, the premiere of the series will mark its first television debut since their last TV appearance ended in 1990. History, Witch Doctor. In 1958, Ross Bagdasarian, released a novelty song about being unsuccessful at love until he found a witch doctor who told him how to woo his woman. The song was done by Bagdasarian in his normal voice, except for the magic words, done first in Bagdasarian's pitched-up, pre-chipmunk voice, then in a duet between his pitched-up voice and his normal voice. The words are nonsense, you-a, ting-tang, walla walla, bing bang. This is the first song that he wrote for his show. The song was a hit, holding #1 for 3 weeks in the Billboard Top 100 chart. Nothing makes any reference to chipmunks, but the song is sometimes included on chipmunk compilations, as if the Chipmunks had provided the voice of the Witch Doctor. Bagdasarian did record a Chipmunks version of Witch Doctor, which appeared on the second Chipmunks album, Sing Again with the Chipmunks, in 1960. Bagdasarian recorded a follow-up song, The Bird on My Head, singing a duet with his own sped-up voice as the bird. It also reached the top 40, peaking at number 34. The Chipmunk Song. The Chipmunks first officially appeared on the scene in a novelty record released in late fall 1958 by Bagdasarian. The song, originally listed on the record label as the Chipmunk Song, featured the singing skills of the Chipmunk Trio. One phrase in the chorus has Alvin wishing for a hula hoop, which was that year's hot new toy. The novelty record was highly successful, selling more than 4 million copies in 7 weeks, and it launched the careers of its Chipmunk stars. It spent 4 weeks at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart from December 22, 1958 to January 12, 1959. It also earned 3 Grammy Awards and a nomination for Record of the Year. At the height of its popularity, Bagdasarian and three chipmunk hand puppets appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, lip-syncing the song. The Chipmunk Song appeared on the Chipmunks' debut album, Let's All Sing with the Chipmunks, in 1959, and was repeated on Christmas with the Chipmunks, released in 1962. The song also has been included on several compilation albums. Bob Rivers did a parody of this song for his 2000 Christmas album Chipmunks Roasting on an Open Fire, which was titled The Twisted Chipmunk Song. In the song, the Chipmunks are referred to as Theodore, Squeaky, and Melvin. The Three Chipmunks. The Chipmunks first appeared in comic book form on Dell's 4-color comic series, issue number 1042. Alvin, Theodore and Simon were depicted as somewhat realistic, nearly identical anthropomorphic rodents with almond-shaped eyes. When Herb Klein unregistered trademark S-Format Films made a deal to develop the Three Chipmunks for animation, the old designs were rejected and new versions of the characters were created. Liberty Records eventually reissued the early albums with the A-New Chipmunks, and it was this new version of the Chipmunks that was used when Alvin's own title was released by Dell in 1962. The Alvin Show. The first television series to feature the characters was The Alvin Show. The cartoon gave more distinctive looks and personalities to the three chipmunks than just their voices, and an animated portrayal of Seville was a reasonable caricature of Bagdasarian himself. The series ran from 1961 to 1962, and was one of a small number of animated series to be shown in primetime on CBS. Unfortunately, it was never an immediate success in primetime and was cancelled after one season, only to find new life in syndication. In addition to Alvin cartoons, the series also featured the scientist Clyde Crashcup and his assistant Leonardo. Those characters did not feature prominently on any of the later series. Crashcup made a single cameo appearance in A Chipmunk Christmas, and in an episode of Alvin and the Chipmunks. The television series was produced by Format Films for Bagdasarian Film Corporation. Although the series was broadcast in black and white, it was produced and later rerun in color. 26 episodes each were produced for the Alvin and the Chipmunks and Clyde Crashcup segments, along with 52 musical segments. New albums and A Chipmunk Christmas, the final Chipmunks album in the project's original incarnation, The Chipmunks Go to the Movies, was released in 1969. After the death of Ross Bagdasarian in 1972 from a heart attack, the Chipmunks' careers stalled until NBC showed interest in the original show, and the following year, Excelsior Records released a new album of contemporary songs performed by the Chipmunks. That album, Chipmunk Punk, featured Bagdasarian's son, Ross Bagdasarian Jr., doing the voices of the characters. That album and the continued reruns of the series proved to be popular enough to warrant further new records as well as a new television production, and in 1981, the Chipmunks and Seville returned to television in the Christmas special A Chipmunk Christmas, produced by Chuck Jones, which was first broadcast on NBC on December 14 of that year. Next year, 2 more albums were released. Alvin and the Chipmunks. The group's name changed from the Chipmunks to Alvin and the Chipmunks. In 1983, a second animated television series for the group, produced by Ruby Spears Productions, was released. Titled simply Alvin and the Chipmunks, the outline of the show closely paralleled the original Alvin Show. The series lasted 8 production seasons, until 1990. In the first season, the show introduced the Chipettes, 3 female versions of the Chipmunks Brittany, Jeanette, and Eleanor, who each paralleled the original Chipmunks in personality except for Brittany being vainer than Alvin, with Jeanette smart like Simon, and Eleanor fond of food like Theodore, with their own human guardian, the myopic Miss Beatrice Miller. The success of the show led to the release of a soundtrack album in 1984, Songs from Our TV Shows. The Chipmunks even walked a variation of NBC's Let's All Be There campaign for its Saturday morning lineup in 1984. After 1988, the show was renamed just the Chipmunks to indicate that there were now 2 groups of them. Also introduced was the boy's Uncle Harry, who may or may not have actually been a relative. The show reflected contemporaneous trends, popular culture. the Chipmunks sang recent hits, and wore contemporary clothing. One documentary episode spoofed John Lennon's 1966 infamous comment that the Beatles had become more popular than Jesus, by recalling how the Chipmunks had fallen in popularity after Alvin boasted they were bigger than Mickey Mouse. In 1985, the Chipmunks, along with the Chipettes, were featured in the live stage show, Alvin and the Chipmunks and the Amazing Computer. In 1987, during the 5th season of the show on television, the Chipmunks had their first animated feature film, The Chipmunk Adventure, directed by Janice Karman and Ross Bagdasarian, Jr., and released to theaters by the Samuel Goldwyn Company. The film featured the Chipmunks and the Chipettes in a contest traveling around the world. In the 1988 to Euro 89 season, the show switched production companies to DIC Entertainment, by which time the Chipmunks had truly become anthropomorphized. In 1990, the show switched titles again to The Chipmunks Go to the Movies. Each episode in this season was a spoof of a Hollywood film, such as Back to the Future, King Kong, and others. In addition, several television specials featuring the characters were also released. At the conclusion of the 8th season, the show was cancelled again. In 1990, a documentary was produced about the show entitled Alvin and the Chipmunks 5 Decades with the Chipmunks. In that year, the Chipmunks also teamed up for the only time with other famous cartoon stars for the drug abuse prevention special cartoon All-Stars to the Rescue. Direct-to-video films from Universal. In 1996, the rights to the characters were purchased by Universal Studios. This resulted in the Chipmunks' 1999 reappearance in the form of the direct-to-video film Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein. A film was successful enough to spark interest in a sequel, and in 2000, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet the Wolfman appeared. Both films featured the original cast of the second series reprising their roles, and the tone of the films is very similar to the series. These film titles reflect earlier horror spoofs by Abbott and Costello. Little Alvin and the Mini-Monks. A live-action film called Little Alvin and the Mini-Monks was released on April 27, 2004. It features puppetry used for the Chipmunks and Chipettes. In this film, when Dave goes out of town, he leaves the young Chipmunks and the Chipettes in the care of Lalu, a friend who is happy to have 6 preschoolers stay with her. Lalu lives in a magic cottage with Gilda, and PC. Lawsuits, album, and CGI animated live-action movie series. In 2000, Bagdasarian Productions sued Universal Studios for breach of contract after its direct-to-video film contract went sour, in order to recoup monetary damages and to regain control of the Alvin and the Chipmunks characters. Bagdasarian won the lawsuit in 2002. In 2004, 20th Century Fox, Regency Enterprises and Bagdasarian Productions announced a CGI live-action film adaptation of the popular musical group and animated series. The new film Alvin and the Chipmunks, directed by Tim Hill and starring Jason Lee as Dave Seville, was released on December 14, 2007. With Justin Long as Alvin, Matthew Gray Gubler as Simon, and Jesse McCartney as Theodore, it marks the first motion picture in which nobody related to Ross Bagdasarian, has performed as David or the Chipmunks. Though the critics gave it harsh reviews, audiences consisting of children and their baby boomer parents flocked to the theaters. In its first weekend, it grossed $44,307,417, second behind I Am Legend. The film closed on June 5, 2008, grossing $217,326,974 in North America and $144,009,659 overseas for a total of $361,336,633 worldwide. In 2006, Bagdasarian Productions sued Thomas Lee, the creator of Chipmunk's Gangsta Rap, a parody created by Bent Frame and featured on Atom Films. Also, The Chipmunk Adventure was released on DVD by Paramount Home Entertainment, then later Trick or Treason, A Chipmunk Christmas, 25th Anniversary and A Chipmunk Valentine. The Chipmunks Go to the Movies was released on May 22, 2007. The Chipmunks album Undeniable was released in November 2008. a sequel to the first film, Alvin and the Chipmunks, the sequel, was released on December 23, 2009. Justin Long, Matthew Gray Gubler, and Jesse McCartney reprised their roles and Betty Thomas returned as director. In the film, the Chipettes are featured, with Christina Applegate as Brittany, Anna Faris as Jeanette, and Amy Poehler as Eleanor. It marks as the first picture in which Janice Karman does not voice the Chipettes. Though critically panned like its predecessor, the sequel opened to $48,875,415 in its first weekend and $75,589,048 in its first 5 days, third at the North American box office behind Avatar and Sherlock Holmes. The film closed on May 20, 2010, having garnered $219,614,612 in North America and $223,525,393 overseas for a grand total of $443,140,005 worldwide. 20th Century Fox announced that Alvin and the Chipmunks 3D would be released worldwide on December 16, 2011. The announcement was made despite Janice Karman suing the studio for lost royalties and intellectual property theft, a move seconded by Ross Bagdasarian Jr., who had cancelled the Bagdasarian-Fox licensing deal over the Studio Euro unregistered trademark's unwillingness to consider the Chipmunks a real band during the post-production of Alvin and the Chipmunks. However, by October 26, 2010, director Mike Mitchell was in negotiations with Fox to direct the new installment in the live-action animated franchise, now entitled Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked, though 20th Century Fox was wavering on whether shoot in 3D. Production for the third film began on January 22, 2011. Some parts of the film were shot aboard the Carnival Dream cruise ship. On the day before the film's premiere in the United States, it was announced that the producers decided that the film will not be in 3D. A film premiered in American theaters on December 16, 2011. Fourth CGI animated live-action installment, a fourth Chipmunks film is scheduled to be released in theaters on December 11, 2015. 2. Main characters, Dave Seville is a quick-tempered yet kind and somewhat insecure songwriter for the musical trio and Chipmunk's adoptive father and confidant. While Dave struggles to remain calm and objective, Alvin often irritates him, causing Dave to yell Alvin. To which Alvin responds with okay. Dave plays piano and the guitar. He has short black hair and brown eyes. In the 1983 animated series, it is revealed that Dave first found the Chipmunks as infants abandoned on the doorstep of his old cottage. At first, he grows to like them but had trouble keeping them from misbehaving as he had important songs to write or else he'd lose his job. On top of that, Dave's landlord is a nasty man who even tries to kill the Chipmunks. However, Dave eventually hears their amazing singing voices and records them, making their song a hit, and with the money they earn they manage to move into a large house, which Dave owns, and live happily together as one big family. In the 2007 film, he is played by Jason Lee. In the film, he first discovers the boys eating food in his cabinets and he panics and throws them out. He later changes his mind and allows them into his home upon them showing their singing talent. He however gets fed up with them and sends them to live with Ian Hawke. He begins to miss the boys and frees them from Ian. He welcomes the Chipmunks into his home and eventually he starts to love them like his own children. However, in the 2009 sequel Alvin and the Chipmunks, the sequel, Dave plays a minor role in the film, mainly due to him being in the hospital in Paris. This happened due to Alvin accidentally causing a billboard to crash into him and he is sent flying across the room and is severely injured, so he is placed in intensive care. He is rarely seen in the film. His cousin Toby acts as both the main character and the Chipmunks' temporary guardian. Dave appears at the end of the film watching his boys and the Chipettes perform together, who Dave allows to live with him and the Chipmunks. Dave appears for a third time in Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked, where he, the Chipmunks and Chipettes board a cruise ship heading to the International Music Awards. He gets mad at Alvin, Simon and the Chipettes for leaving their cabin room for their own reasons. Later, He teams up with his old enemy, Ian, to find the chipmunks and chipettes when the six get blown away while hang gliding a kite. He finds them and leaves the island with them before its volcano erupts. He later watches his family perform at the International Music Awards. He is last seen on an airplane with them heading for home. The Chipmunks, Alvin. Alvin is the lead vocalist and the oldest brother of Alvin and the Chipmunks. He wears red and his eyes are blue. His enthusiasm is boundless and his despair bottomless. The term "look before you leap" does not usually apply to Alvin, who is impulsive, charming, and musical. The character always seems to make up harebrained schemes to get what his goal is at the time, whether it be trying to help his brothers, keeping Dave from figuring something out, or getting out of a sticky situation. However, Alvin seems to refer to his often illogical or crazy plans as challenging the ordinary. On July 30, 2002, Alvin was number 44 on TV Guide's list of top 50 best cartoon characters of all time. He is mostly shown to be infatuated with Brittany, although they often annoy each other, but they look out for each other when things look bad. Like his brothers, he was originally voiced by Ross Bagdasarian, Sr. in the animated series and film. He was voiced by Ross Bagdasarian, Jr. Justin Long voiced Alvin in the live-action animated film series. Simon, in addition to having an IQ just north of Einstein, Simon possesses a dry sense of humor as well as a keen wit. He takes charge when Alvin goes too far with his harebrained schemes. Simon loves Alvin, although he secretly worries that they share the same gene pool. He wears glasses and blue attire, and has blue eyes. He plays the bass clarinet, saxophone, bagpipes, tuba, and drums, among others. He is shown playing the keyboard in the original open for the 1980s series. He was also shown playing guitar in a 1980s Hardee's commercial. He appears to be interested in Jeanette, who has some things in common with him. However, she is more bashful and timid than Simon. Like his brothers, he was originally voiced by Ross Bagdasarian, Sr. in the animated series and film. He was voiced by Ross Bagdasarian, Jr. Matthew Gray Gubler voiced Simon in the live-action animated film series. Theodore. Theodore is the child of innocence and the youngest. He is shy, loving, sensitive, chubby, gullible, trusting, and novelty. In short, he is an easy target for Alvin's manipulations. He wears green and has green eyes. Theodore often holds the swing vote between his two brothers' choices of action. Simon appeals to Theodore's better nature while Alvin goes straight to bribery. He is constantly craving snacks and in one episode, Theodore tried to eat Alvin's hand because of his hunger. He plays the drums, the guitar, and others. He is the baby of the group. He is fragile yet unpredictable. At times, he is childish and Alvin's follower. He is the glue that binds his brothers despite Alvin and Simon's differences and regular disagreements. He seems to have affection for Eleanor, who shares physical traits with him, but she is smarter, braver and more athletic. Like his brothers, he was originally voiced by Ross Bagdasarian, Sr. in the animated series and film. His voice was provided by Janice Karman, Ross Bagdasarian Jr.'s wife and the voice of all three Chipettes. Jesse McCartney voiced Theodore in the live-action animated film series. The Chipettes. Brittany. Brittany is the lead singer and the oldest sister of the Chipettes. She has a pleasing facial and physical appearance, but at times can be vain and self-serving with the extreme desire to have whatever she wants, but is still very caring. Often Brittany is happy to outdo others she dislikes, which often establishes the plot of the episode. She wears pink and she also has auburn brown hair which is seen in a stylized ponytail. Jeanette. Jeanette is the middle sister and smartest of the Chipettes, even though she is the tallest. Like Simon, she wears glasses. She has brown hair in a bun in the 80s show and a short ponytail in the recent films. Her eyes are green in her TV appearances and the Chipmunk Adventure but were changed to purple in the live-action CGI films. She cares about Simon and gets along with him very well. Eleanor. Eleanor is the youngest sister of the Chipettes. She has a lot in common with Theodore in terms of body shape and color of attire, but she is braver, more fit and remembers stuff better. She is blonde with pigtails and has brown eyes in the 80s show, which changed to green in the more recent appearances of Eleanor. Film characters: Ian Hawke. Ian is played by comedian David Cross, and serves as the main antagonist in the first two films. He is Dave's friend turned rival and former college roommate, and serves as the CEO of Jet Records in the first film. One day, the Chipmunks sneak off to his home to audition, whereupon he automatically signs them onto the label. He rockets them to the top of music business, but after seeing how much they're truly worth, he attempts to lure them away from Dave for his own profit. His plan ultimately fails, as the Chipmunks have learned of it and escaped from his grasp, thus leaving him to be ousted from his job as CEO of Jet Records. In the second film, Ian is now unemployable and in debt, and lives in the basement of Jet Records. However, he happens upon the Chipettes, who want to be famous like the Chipmunks, and cannot wait to make them famous, so he takes them in hopes of getting his sworn revenge on the Chipmunks. He enrolls the Chipettes into the same school as the Chipmunks, and after showing Dr. Rubin their talent, she agrees to let them battle the Chipmunks for the right to represent the school for the district's music competition. However, in the climax, Ian decides to blow off the competition to have the Chipettes to perform at a Britney Spears concert, and takes them by force, threatening to take them to a barbecue restaurant if they will not comply. Alvin saves the Chipettes from Ian, who then tries to imitate them at the Britney Spears concert, only to get thrown into a dumpster by security guards. In the third film, Ian appears to have mellowed down and now works on the Carnival Dream cruise ship, dressed in a pelican suit. As a well-respected mascot, he takes his job very seriously and threatens to have Dave and the Chipmunks removed from the ship if they continue to act up. However, he becomes Dave's friend again while helping him find the Chipmunks after they were left being marooned in the island. In the end, he gets his wealth back by starting a career as a screenwriter, having sold a screenplay about Zoe's story to Hollywood. Claire Wilson. Claire is Dave's ex-girlfriend who adores the Chipmunks after she finally gets to meet them. She becomes good friends with Dave again by the end of the movie. She is played by Cameron Richardson. Toby Seville, Dave's immature cousin who appeared in the second film. Toby is a slacker who loves to play video games and still lives with his grandmother and Dave's aunt, Jackie Seville, until he figures out what he wants to do with his life. Toby's immaturity keeps him from acting like an adult, and he has a crush on the Chipmunks' homeroom and music teacher, Julie Ortega, ever since he went to the same school as the Chipmunks. He is played by Chuck star Zachary Levi. Zoe is a deluded castaway who was found by Chipmunks when they end up being marooned on an island that she took refuge. She claims to be on the island for 8 to 9 years. At first, she was believed to be crash-landed into the island, but it turns out that she intentionally came here to look for treasure after learning of the Chipmunks finding some treasure behind a waterfall. Taking the opportunity, Zoe kidnaps Jeanette and forces her to get all the treasure, since she is small enough to reach it. Eventually, Alvin and Dave come to the rescue, causing Zoe to lose hold of Jeanette and the treasure. While Alvin leads Jeanette out of harm's way, Dave trips over a log bridge due to an imminent volcanic explosion, hanging for dear life. It was then an infuriated Zoe, determined to get revenge on him for losing the treasure, forces him to let go, but luckily, Ian comes to the rescue, explaining her of his rivalry with Dave and the Chipmunks that cost him his career and that getting back at Dave will not get her what she wants. He convinces her to do the right thing, which Zoe finally does. She eventually escapes the island along with Dave, Ian, and the Chipmunks on raft as the volcano starts to erupt. As the survivors are safely ahead from the eruption, Zoe apologizes to Jeanette for kidnapping her, and in return, Jeanette hands her the gold tiara that Simon found in the waterfall. She is played by former SNL actress Jenny Slate. Television characters: Miss Beatrice Miller, the kindly, absent-minded adoptive mother of the Chipettes. She occasionally babysits the Chipmunks and has a crush on Dave, even though she's old enough to be his mother. In her youth, she was part of an all-girl singing group called the Thrillers. She appeared in the 1983 TV series and was voiced by Dodie Goodman. Professor Clyde Crashcut. Clyde Crash Cooper voiced by Shepard Mankina is a scientist in a white coat whose experiments invariably failed. His was the only voice heard in many of the episodes, because the other character in the series was his assistant Leonardo, who only whispered into Clyde's ear. In one episode, though, Clyde invented a wife, voiced by June Foray. Clyde had one of the 4 segments, and the Chipmunks starred in the other 3. In the episode Crash Coop Invents the Birthday Party, Foray provided the voice for the mother of Crash Coop's inaudible assistant Leonardo. Clyde Crash Coop was primarily an inventor rather than a researcher, although he tended to invent things which had already been invented. However, in one episode, he built a functioning time machine. He typically would invent something by taking a pencil out of his lab coat's pocket and drawing a picture in mid-air of his conception. The picture would then become the actual object. Recording technique: the Chipmunks' voices were recorded at half the normal tape speed onto audio tape by voice talent talking or singing at half the normal speaking rate. When the tape was played back at normal speed, they would sound a full octave higher in pitch, at normal tempo. The technique was by no means new to the Chipmunks. For example, the high and low-pitched characters in The Wizard of Oz were achieved by speeding up and slowing down vocal recordings. Also, Mel Blanc's voice characterization for Daffy Duck was sped up to some extent. Now, the same effect is created digitally and in real time with a pitch shift. However, the extensive use of this technique with the Chipmunks, coupled with their popularity, linked this technique to them. The term chipmunk voiced has entered the American vernacular to describe any artificially high-pitched voice. A similar effect could be obtained in playback by merely taking an LP recorded at 331 or 3 RPMs and playing it back at 45 or 78 RPMs, a trick sometimes tried out by ordinary record listeners. The instrumental portions of the song are sped up as well, however, making it obvious that the music is being played at the wrong speed. Bagdasarian recorded vocals and music at different speeds to combine properly on his recording. The technique was used extensively in the British puppet show Pinky and Perky, which predated the Chipmunks. The sound was frequently imitated in comedy records, notably Transistor Radio by Benny Hill, Bridget the Midget by Ray Stevens, The Laughing Gnome by David Bowie, and on several tracks on Joe Meek and the Blue Men's album I Hear a New World. The technique also appears in the instrumental break in Bobby Lewis' 1961 US #1 hit Tossin' and Turnin'. Prince has used the technique on several of his songs, as well as Frank Zappa on We Only In It for the Money and on the instrumental album Hot Rats, among others. The early production style of hip-hop artist Kanye West involved sped-up, high-pitched vocal samples from classic soul records incorporated with his own instrumentation. Due in part to the acclaim of his debut album The College Dropout, such sampling techniques subsequently became much copied by a myriad of other hip-hop producers. In the early 90s rave scene, many breakbeat hardcore productions would utilize the same studio tricks, often taking a cappella from house records and speeding them up to fit the faster tempo. Vocals in songs that used this method would typically be referred to as chipmunk vocals. Chipmunk Records. In 1991, Bagdasarian Productions acquired the production company offices and holdings from Udden, and reopened the record label Jet Records under the new name Chipmunk Records. There is a reference to the company in the 2007 film Alvin and the Chipmunks, in which the Chipmunks record label is Jet Records. Guest appearances: the Chipmunks make a guest appearance on the canned heat song The Chipmunk Song that appeared on their Christmas single. They also appeared on the FOX NFL Sunday intro with the cameo character, Digger. Discography. Concert tours: 1984 are The Chipmunks and the Magic Camera, 2008, Get Monka Tour. Awards and nominations: 1959, won 3 Grammy Awards for Best Recording for Children, Best Comedy Performance, and Best Engineered Recording a non-classical for the song The Chipmunk Song. 1960, won a Grammy Award for Best Engineered Recording, non-classical, for the song Alvin's Harmonica. 1961, won a Grammy Award for Best Album for Children for the album Let's All Sing with the Chipmunks. The song Alvin for President was also nominated for both Best Comedy Performance a Euro Musical and Best Engineered Record a Euro Novelty, making 2 nominations in the latter category. 1962 was nominated again for a Grammy Award for Best Engineered Record a Euro Novelty for the television tie-in album The Alvin Show. 1963 was nominated again for Grammy Awards for both Best Album for Children and Best Engineered Record a Euro Novelty for the album The Chipmunk Songbook. 1966 was nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Recording for Children for the song Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. 1985 was nominated for an Emmy Award in the category Outstanding Animated Program. 1987, the second television series was nominated for a Young Artist Award in the category Exceptional Family Animation Series or Specials. 1987 was nominated for an Emmy Award in the category Outstanding Animated Program. 1988 was nominated for an Emmy Award in the category Outstanding Animated Program. 1988 was nominated for a Young Artist Award in the category Best Motion Picture Euro Animation for the movie The Chipmunk Adventure. 2000, won the Golden Reel Award in the category Best Sound Editing a Euro Direct-to-Video a Euro Sound Editorial for the movie Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein. 2008, Jason Lee won the Kids' Choice Awards in the category Favorite Movie for the movie Alvin and the Chipmunks. 2008, the 2007 Alvin and the Chipmunks soundtrack won the American Music Award for Best Movie Soundtrack. 2010, Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Squircle won the Kids' Choice Awards in the category Favorite Movie. 2012, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked won the 2012 Kids' Choice Awards in the category Favorite Movie. There were 5 Grammy Awards, an American Music Award, a Golden Reel Award, and 3 Kids' Choice Awards in total. List of VHS releases. Following the cult success of the Laura Ma home video release of the previously successful movie The Chipmunk Adventure on VHS, select episodes of the show from 1983 to 1990, as well as several specials from the 80s and 90s, were released on VHS. Initially, in 1989, they were distributed by Burbank Video. From 1992 to 1996, they were distributed by Buena Vista Home Video. From 1998 to 2000, they were distributed by Universal Studios Home Entertainment. The VHS Chipmunk video library titles featured select episodes from the Ruby Spears and Murakami Wolf Swenson eras, but no opening and closing credits were included. Instead, each tape opened with previews from the 6 primary Chipmunk library titles, set to the 1988 version of the show's theme song titled With the Chipmunks. Also, a synthesized version of the 1983 Euro 1987 title card music was used on the Ruby Spears episodes. However, unlike the syndicated versions for most of these episodes that were airing at the time, these episodes were presented in their original speed, just as they were on NBC, before they were sped up for syndication. The early mid-90s Chipmunk VHS releases featured select episodes from the DC era. The Universal Home Video releases consisted of the reissue of The Chipmunk Adventure, and the 2 direct-to-video films. The Chipmunk Adventure, Alvin and the Chipmunks in Alvin and the Chipettes, The Greatest Show-Offs on Earth, Sisters, Tell It to the Judge. Alvin and the Chipmunks in Chipmunk Classics, Snow Wrong, Cinderella? Cinderella. Alvin and the Chipmunks in Chipmunk Mania, Every Chipmunk Tells a Story, Who Goes There, A Horse of Course. Alvin and the Chipmunks in the Chipmunk Family Tree, The Chipmunk Story, A Chipmunk Reunion. Around the World with Alvin and the Chipmunks, Maids in Japan, Alvy's Angels, The Mystery of Seville Manor. Alvin and the Chipmunks in Alvin's Wildest Schemes, Romancing Miss Stone, Snow Job, A Chip Off the Old Tooth. Alvin and the Chipmunks in A Chipmunk Christmas, A Chipmunk Christmas. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Rockin' with the Chipmunks, featuring Michael Jackson, The Chipmunks, Rockin' Through the Decades. Alvin and the Chipmunks, It's a Wonderful Life, Dave, Dave's Wonderful Life. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Alvin's Christmas Carol, Merry Christmas, Mr. Carol. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Love Potion No. 9, Theodore and Juliet, Dr. Simon and Mr. Heartthrob, Dear Diary. Alvin and the Chipmunks Sing-Alongs, Ragtime Cowboy Joe, Alvin and the Chipmunks Sing-Alongs, Video Audio Fun Pack, Working on the Railroad, Alvin and the Chipmunks, School's Out for Summer, Alvin's Summer Job, Thinking Cap Trap. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Hair-Raising Chipmunk Tales, Babysitter Fright Night, Theodore's Life as a Dog, and Fair Science. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Nightmare on Seville Street, Nightmare on Seville Street, No Chipmunk is an Island, Psychic Alvin. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Back to Alvin's Future, Back to Our Future. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Kong. Kong. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Bashmunk, Bashmunk. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Funny, We Shrunk the Adults, Funny, We Shrunk the Adults. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Easter Chipmunk, The Easter Chipmunk. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Daytona Jones, Daytona Jones and the Pearl of Wisdom. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Robber Monk, Robber Monk. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Trick or Treason, Trick or Treason. Alvin and the Chipmunks, A Chipmunk Celebration, A Chipmunk Celebration. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Bigger. Bigger. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Star Wreck, Absolutely Final Frontier, Star Wreck, The Absolutely Final Frontier. Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet the Wolf Man. There were also VHS releases in the UK that included episodes that have yet to be released in the US on DVD, and have never been released in the US on VHS. They consist of The Phantom, The War, Queen of the High School Ballroom, Alvin's Not-So-Superhero, Home Sweet Home, All Worked Up, and Phantom of the Rock Opera. There was also a VHS tape released exclusively in Germany that featured 7 different segments. On it were The War, The Amazing Chipmunks, Psychic Alvin, A Special Kind of Champion, Cookie Chomper 3, Nightmare on Seville Street, and Thinking Cap Trap. Of the 7, The Amazing Chipmunks, which originally aired alongside The War, is extremely hard to find in its original English language. List of DVDs. In 2005, Bagdasarian Production struck a deal with Paramount Home Video to distribute their latest direct-to-video release, Little Alvin and the Mini Monks, on DVD. As a result, Paramount continues to distribute select episodes of the show from 1983 to 1990, as well as several specials from the 80s and 90s on DVD, except for Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet the Wolf Man, and the 2007 film. The DVD releases include episodes of the 80s Alvin and the Chipmunks animated series that were previously released on VHS, as well as episodes that have been previously unreleased on a home video format. Also, one episode of The Alvin Show from the 1960s was released. Monster Bash Fun Pack, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet the Wolf Man. Little Alvin and the Mini Monks, Alvin and the Chipmunks, A Chipmunk Christmas, A Chipmunk Christmas, Merry Christmas, Mr. Carroll Dave's Wonderful Life. The Chipmunk Adventure, The Brave Chipmunks. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Trick or Treason, Trick or Treason, Babysitter Fright Night, Theodore's Life as a Dog, Nightmare on Seville Street, No Chipmunk is an Island. Alvin and the Chipmunks, A Chipmunk Christmas, 25th Anniversary Edition, same as previous release, except with a bonus CD. Alvin and the Chipmunks, A Chipmunk Valentine, I Love the Chipmunks Valentine Special, Dr. Simon and Mr. Heartthrob, Dear Diary, Theodore and Juliet Splosh, One Wish I Could Speak French. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Star Wreck, The Absolutely Final Frontier, Bashmunk, Funny, We Shrunk the Adults. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Scarific Double Feature, Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein and Alvin and the Chipmunks Meet the Wolf Man, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Funny, We Shrunk the Adults, Funny, We Shrunk the Adults, Back to Our Future, Bigger. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Daytona Jones and the Pearl of Wisdom, Daytona Jones and the Pearl of Wisdom, Bashmonk, Robber Monk. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Alvin Edition, The Curse of the Lontiki Mr. Fabulous, Unidentified Flying Chipmunk, A Horse of Course, New Improved Simon, Snow Job, Maids in Japan, Every Chipmunk Tells a Story, Romancing Miss Stone, 3-Alarm Alvin, Alvin's Oldest Fan, A Chip Off the Old Tooth, Whatever Happened to Dave Seville. Cadet's Regrets. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Alvin's Thanksgiving Celebration, A Chipmunk Celebration, Food for Thought, Cookie Chomper 3, Dave's Getting Married. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Classic Holiday Gift Set, includes all the episodes from the DVDs Trick or Treason, Alvin's Thanksgiving Celebration, and A Chipmunk Christmas. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Chipettes, May the Best Chipmunk Win, Operation Theodore, Sisters, The Greatest Show-Offs on Earth, My Fair Chipette, Tell It to the Judge. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Mystery of the Easter Chipmunk, The Easter Chipmunk, Snow Wrong, Lucko the Chipmunks, A Special Kind of Champion, Thinking Cap Trap. Alvin and the Chipmunks Go to the Movies, Star Wreck, The Absolutely Final Frontier, Elementary, My Dear Simon, Chip Tracy. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Very First Alvin Show, Episode No. 1 of The Alvin Show, A Chipmunk Reunion, Rockin' Through the Decades. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Alvin and the Chipettes and Cinderella, Cinderella. Alvy's Angels, The Brunch Club. Alvin and the Chipmunks, The Square-Equal, Blu-ray and DVD Combo Pack, Standard DVD, Double Disc DVD, and Standard Blu-ray Disc was released on March 30, 2010. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Driving Dave Crazy, Dave's Getting Married, Every Chipmunk Tells a Story, Romancing Miss Stone, Maids in Japan, The Incredible Shrinking Dave, Mother's Day. The Chipette Diaries, Alvy's Angels, Tell It to the Judge, My Fair Chipette, May the Best Chipmunk Win, Greatest Show-Offs on Earth, The Chipettes. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Chipwrecked Blu-ray and DVD Combo Pack, Standard DVD, Double Disc DVD, and Standard Blu-ray Disc was released on March 27, 2012. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Bashmonk, Treasure Island, Elementary My Dear Simon. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Halloween Collection, Trick or Treason, Babysitter Fright Night, Theodore's Life as a Dog, Nightmare on Seville Street, Once Upon a Crime. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Easter Collection, The Easter Chipmunk, A Special Kind of Champion, Thinking Cap Trap, The Picture of Health, Snow Wrong, Lucko the Chipmunks. The Chipettes, The Glass Slipper Collection, Cinderella. The Chipette Story, Sisters, Operation Theodore. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Driving Dave Crazy, Cookie Chomper 3, Grounded Chipmunk, Whatever Happened to Dave Seville. A Chip Off the Old Tooth. References. External links, chipmunks.com, Bagdasarian Productions official site, Cinema CH trailer, The History of the Chipmunks, animation.archive.org, Alvin and the Chipmunks at Don Markstein's Toonipedia. Archived from the original on April 4, 2012.